Fresh off the island, fresh off the island. Like the way we style it, always keep smiling. Papa God, thank you for today.
Welcome to One Shell Behind. This is Nick.
And Monica.
And we are back with our multi-year journey through the album Vanuatu Proud by Nawarake out of Vanuatu. We are now on, what is this? This is the third track of the album. And today we are focusing on the song Yumi, which was originally released as a single in 2020 and then released on the album a year later for Vanuatu independence, July 30th, which just passed about a month ago. I guess it'll be a month ago tomorrow. So today we're going to be talking about Yumi, featuring once again Lady Rudy, who was featured in the previous song Vanuatu Proud, the titular track of the album.
Titular track.
Yes, the titular track. So tonight we are drinking kava from, I believe, Tawa in Vava'u.
Vava'u kava?
It's certainly kava Vava'u. I'm guessing Tawa because the people we bought it from, Selika, the art society, has previously been selling a lot of kava from Tawa, so I'm assuming as much, but it's good stuff.
Daniela said it was strong, so you know it's strong.
It's certainly strong. So, with that said, I think maybe we'll jump into the song after a quick shell break.
Cheers.
Fresh like you in a full pack of DK. We living easy. Island fresh, baby. Feeling relaxed on the daily. City life's crazy. But it's the island life that made me unwind like a bush trail. Save me. After hard work, it's time to be lazy.
And we're back. Yumi by Nawarake, the third track on the album Vanuatu Proud from July 2021. This track focuses on the history of Vanuatu, with a real focus on the independence of Vanuatu in 1980, July 30, 1980. And the song itself actually kind of treks. It's split up into three verses. Chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, and each of the verses kind of takes you through, in some cases, like 100 years of time leading up to independence and then after that. But, you know, the song and the album itself was really focused on the celebration of independence, so this is definitely one of the focus of it. Feels almost like an inspiration for it because it came out like a good year ahead of the rest of the tracks on the album.
Yeah, it'd be a really helpful tool to help explain the continuum of Vanuatu history, because it is the past few hundred years, referencing back thousands of years and all the factors that led us to where we are today in present day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we jump on in and we can hear some of that.
July number 30 long 1980. Vanuatu had me free. God bless them. Yumi, Yumi, Yumi. All man long talent say. Long God, Yumi stand up. Yumi blessed every day. Long God, Yumi stand up. Yumi blessed plenty way. Yumi, 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 Yumi.
Yeah. Vanuatu paradise looking so heavenly. Captain Cook arrived and he named this place New Hebrides long 1770s. Man Englander, him me really like him block explore, but before he got man finish, plenty people 3,000 year finish. You cheek him la pita. Melanesia, I love you till I die long 1452, yeah, volcano block Hawaii. Hit me fire up, sending fire in the sky. Tongoa, Tongariki, my epi divide. 1800s, lots of traders came and brought diseases. 1848, John Getty brought talk, long Jesus. 1860s, black brothers still and plenty man to slave and plantations overseas from sugar cane. No my same Vanuatu looking back 1980 and me come, what you make him, you me glad.
All right, and that is the first chorus and verse. You can see already that we actually kind of jumped thousands of years. I mean, I think my favorite part, and I've probably said this a lot off the recorder, but the Chicam Lapita and the whole idea of, you know, Captain Cook showing up and discovering, quote unquote, Vanuatu and naming it the New Hebrides, and the fact that, you know, the Lapita people had been there for 3,000 years prior.
It's one of the best lines on the album, where he summarizes Captain Cook and all of his infamy, if you will, with "Hemi really like him, blow explore," where it's just he was a rich guy on a boat. He said a lot of shit. And here we are.
Yeah, it's an excellent way to just kind of like, I don't know if belittle's the right term, but just like kind of like minimize this like person who's, you know, essentially been telling the history of the Pacific. I mean, it happens in Tonga too. Like the story Mariner Willie, like it's just a bunch of like European explorers telling the history, right, of the Pacific.
Rich dude with ships.
Yeah, like in this case, in Vanuatu's history, but of course, you know, our experience here in Tonga as well, and seeing so many stories that are told.
And celebrated even.
Yeah, that are coming from people who aren't Tongan, aren't from the country, aren't, you know, indigenous to the area. They're explorers. What was I? I was thinking of something where it was like it's like prehistory and history. I think there's a lot of Pacific academics describe it in the way where this kind of like everything before the European explorers is considered like prehistory, and it's not really considered. There's the challenge of like the legitimacy of it within academia, because the expectation is that things should be written down and recorded, and if you're in, you know, cultures that focus on oral histories and oral communication and passing things down that way, and not necessarily recording things in a traditional European sense, which a lot of academia is kind of modeled after, you have that challenge of the legitimacy of it.
And the expectation that the timeline starts when the Europeans arrive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so history starts there. Everything else is prehistory, which is on the base of it just ridiculous. But
downright offensive.
But yeah, no, I think Nawarake does a really excellent job of just kind of hitting on that in a very kind of succinct, really nice way. With
and
the
then
Chica
running
Lapita.
away with it.
Yeah, just running away with it. It's like, this is all I need to say about this, and we're going to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we don't skip over it, but we cover a lot of distance from, you know, the Lapita people arriving in the archipelago of Vanuatu, what is now Vanuatu, and then jumping to, you know, Captain Cook, and I think John Getty, the missionary, bringing Talk Blowing Jesus to Vanuatu. So that's kind of, you know, this whole scope, and then even jumping at the very end to, you know, 1980 as a transition back to the chorus.
But it even goes so far as the Kauai eruption, which was one of the largest in the last 10,000 years per Wikipedia.
Did he say 1492? Was that 1492? I could have swore he said 1492, but maybe it's just like I'm just caught up in other European explorers. Was like Columbus 1492 sailed the ocean blue? I don't know.
God.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that will never leave your heads thanks to the American education system.
Heyo.
But
1450s?
1450s? 1452 maybe? I mean, I'm pretty confident he said it was in the 1400s. I'm not as familiar with the eruption. That was the volcano based in what is now the Shefa province?
Epi and the Shepherd Islands.
Yeah,
it was a larger island
yeah.
that exploded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And scattered into the Shepherd Islands, and then Efate and Epi.
Yeah, so it was 1450s.
Oh, okay.
With a date consistent of 1452 or 1453 based on carbon.
Yeah. I think
studies.
it was the 1452 was the one that I was listening to. Well, you want to jump into the second chorus?
Let's do it.
All right, we'll jump into the second chorus and the second verse.
1980, Vanuatu had me free, God bless them, Yumi. All man long talent say, long God, you me stand up, you me blessed every day. Long God, you me stand up, you me blessed.
1906 Only startem condominium Og man place i noget sick No stuff it come one citizen No good straight England more funny See got different bullies Different law, different language 1922 like what is going on Plenty man blow walk la farm Only come long Vietnam Man USA come long 1942 long Santo mo og fattig from World War II US flaggy fly yet long Tanna Island More long every Friday night Only Danish John from All man overseas Taking anything they please 1962 Ferrari mine Manganese To be free and independent My land, my life Fatter what the hot linje Hemmelig den fight Then we struggle But finally his dream came true 1980 Happy birthday Vanuatu
July number 30 long 1980.
All right, that was the second chorus and the second verse, which takes us from 1906, so a shorter time frame, but a lot of really interesting things happening at that point. I think that the first thing he touches on is that condominium government with the French and the English, which is I don't think there's been many of those kinds of situations in
smaller territories there have been, but it's one of the more unique governance systems.
Yeah. And obviously from the lyrics, he touches on a lot of how, like, this can't really work. Like,
different laws, different languages, different police structures.
Yeah, like just the idea of the splitting the capital city into these different areas where this is a French territory and English territory, besides the whole fact of the colonization issue and that we have two colonizers who
accepting
are
colonization, having the idea of a French hospital and an English hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
for service delivery just seems absurd.
And you still see, you see the traces of that today, that the French influence isn't nearly as, like, I guess, expansive. There's much of the country is much more English-focused, Anglophone, English-speaking, or at least, schools, right? Like, they're Anglophone, they're English schools, there are French schools, but they're not as prevalent, though the capital has a lot of significant French influence, and of course there's a French embassy, because there's that historical connection.
The street's still named in French.
Yeah. It's interesting in that sense. You don't see that much French, but there's a lot of, like, just kind of artifacts of France that are around, and there's that influence. And of course, Alliance Francaise is there, and that's
where isn't Alliance Francaise?
That's a good point. Alliance Francaise is everywhere. The French really want to keep their language alive, but there's a certain, like, cultural influence that Alliance has, like, just with arts and culture, and they have concerts, right? There's it feels like it's part of the cultural zeitgeist. Mm-hmm. Whereas in other areas it might be there, but it doesn't feel like it's always necessarily central. Yeah. But there is what's the name of the French rapper, the hip hop artist? Is it Paytax? Is Paytax? I feel like it's Paytax. I could be wrong. We can correct me at another episode if I'm wrong about that. But I think it's Paytax who raps in French. It's really, really good. But this is Nick from the future. It is not Paytax. It is JP Nale. Totally missed that one, but found it in our actual title track. How funny is that? Got to pay more attention to that kind of stuff. All right, now back to the show. We could certainly check out one of his songs at a later date.
Do a full episode on it.
Though I don't think we won't understand any of it because neither of us speak French, but maybe we could feature one of his songs as we speak about it. But you can see again, and then, like, so we go from the condominium government, and we start talking about
1922 with the Vietnamese influence.
Yeah.
Working the farms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The farmers coming in, and is that a French influence as well? I'm not so familiar with it. For some reason, I feel like
my American history courses didn't cover the French Vietnamese.
I thought there was a French
issues.
influence with Vietnamese because there's, like, certain, like, influences, like, within the food. I could be completely mistaken, but I thought there was some kind of French influence with Vietnam. But
I can't speak to that without sounding ignorant. I already sound ignorant.
I won't. I'm just trying to pick pieces of history, world history that I can remember. But we move on from there into World War II. Vanuatu had a really interesting place in that because the U.S. troops were all over Vanuatu as they were stopping the Japanese incursion from the Solomons. with the concern that they were going to get to Australia, and that's when the U.S. entered the war and essentially stopped that progress in Guadalcanal.
In the Solomons.
Yeah, in the Solomons, but I mean just north of the banks, right, and the Torres and the banks in northern Vanuatu. Like, you can see the southern islands of the Solomons from the Torres, and just how close that came to where they would have, you know, made an incursion into Vanuatu.
And when you speak to older folks in Vanuatu, they still remember the World War II influence. They remember seeing the American troops. They remember once they left, and they left all of their trash behind, and what was actually usable and what was garbage. And it's interesting to see that there is still such a memory of it, a very loud memory of it. Yeah,
I remember when I was living in East Milo, there was an elder there who often would speak to me about the troops that he saw when he was a kid, which was really crazy just to consider, like, the lifetime that passed to, like, see all of that and to have experienced that. Like,
what a snapshot of history to be a part of.
Yeah, just like to be part of, like, just like U.S. troops monitoring for, like, Japanese submarines or U-boats, attacking or incursions into the area.
And watching the planes fly over.
Yeah. There's plenty of, like, I mean, there were ships that crashed and sunk there, not because of enemy attacks, but just because accidents happen. I mean, I think that's the one off of Santo. It's a big dive site. I can't remember the name. The USS something. I can't remember the name of it. Not a diver. I don't. I don't consider it that often, but yeah. So we jump from World War II. And then we start talking about the independence movement.
The SS President Coolidge.
Oh, the Coolidge. I should have remembered that off of, the coast of Santo. So...
And then we jump to the John Frum influence in Tana.
Oh, yeah, because, you got this American influence in this really strange way with the cargo cult in Tana that's, exists till this day, and the belief that John Frum will be coming back with, treasures, wealth, material wealth for... Yeah,
we're not going to dive into the cargo cult, but it's absolutely worth researching on your own time.
Yeah, no, I absolutely recommend the documentary Waiting for John.
Okay.
It's a short one. I think it's only like an hour and a half, but it's really interesting and does a good take on, informative take on the cargo cult in Tana, Waiting for John. But it's certainly very interesting. I know, people who've gone and lived in cargo cult areas and communities, and just kind of the interactions are very interesting, because I mean most of Vanuatu is very Christian with the missionaries, but then with the cargo cult it's a very different kind of experience.
Certainly.
That you don't often see or get to experience, but
particularly on an island where Vanuatu custom is still so prevalent.
Yeah, Tana especially is very strong when it comes to custom. But yeah, so we move from there to the independence movement, and that brings us to the third verse.
1962, manganese mining.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also shout out Stan and the Earth Force song, My Land, My Life.
Just
wanted to say that. Hi, Stan.
Yes, good. Yeah, no, it's a good call on the Stan, the Earth Force song. Stan, another terrific and amazing Ni Vanuatu artist who's very well known in the region, reggae artist, performs often internationally in New Caledonia as well. But yeah, super talented guy, and referenced here, and he's actually featured on the next track in the album, Home. Yeah, so we'll be talking about him more as he's featured in a few more of the tracks. But for now, why don't we go ahead and jump into the next, or the last, chorus and verse.
1980 to present.
Yep.
Vanuatu had me free, God he bless them, Yumi, Yumi, Yumi. All man don't let's say. Long God, you me stand up, you me blessed every day. Long God, you me stand up, you me blessed plenty way, Yumi, 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 Yumi.
When independence independence came, some people didn't want us leaving. Santo had a small rebellion, it was led by Jimmy Stevens. But Yumi overcome what the day Yumi glad. Kalantas Malon, man, now design a flag. One yellow letter Y ship long all island. He represent them light and he come long my land. Red for the blood that was shed, people bled to be free. Green for the land surrounded by sea. Two-leaf na mele, him a long piece. With them tooth long big, respect them custom or chief. Color black, him a long or Melanesian skin. Vanuatu flag, yeah, him me tough back again. Long 1994, 6th province you me make him. Malampa Penama Torba, Tafeya Sama Schaefer. 52 MP, represent them you me blong Vanuatu. God he bless him you me.
July number 30 long 1980. Vanuatu heavy free. God he bless them you me. All man long talent say. Long God you me stand up, you me blessed every day. Long God you me stand up, you me blessed plenty way.
God bless Vanuatu. Yumi.
Long God, you me stand up, you me blessed every day.
Yumi, all man Vanuatu. God bless.
Long God, you me stand up, you me blessed every day.
Long God, you me stand up.
All right, and that was the last chorus and verse that really does bring us to that independence in 1980, led by the movement being led by Reverend Walter Linney, and then also touching on the kind of rebellion in Santo, led by Jimmy Stevens, not wanting to join with the new republic, and I recall the kind of them blocking the runway, not allowing planes to land, like just using their bodies to block the runway. But they did come to a resolution. Santo is part of the Republic of Vanuatu and following their freedom, and then they talk about the flag, which is a really interesting and cool design as well.
It's rather unique.
Yeah, absolutely. It has a lot of meaning and symbolism behind it. The Y shape representing the archipelago of the islands.
Yeah, each of the colors and the icons standing for something outlined in the song.
Yeah. There's the yellow for the sun, the green for the color of the islands, the red for the blood of the people, the black for the skin of the people, the two-leaf namele for peace, and the chiefs, the tooth blow pig, the pig's tooth. That represents custom and the chiefly system, because they still have that system, right, where they have the parliament and they also have the chiefly system that manage alongside each other in a very interesting way. I mean, it's definitely it's certainly compelling, because you see in Vanuatu this like very strong connection to custom and history, in that there's still that like oral communication, and there's so many different languages and tribes throughout the country that just like allows for this very like it's like was heterogeneous, like opposed to like a very homogeneous, like everyone is like has in some ways a shared culture under Vanuatu as an identity, but also within the islands, and even within the islands, separate areas that for many years were they speak different languages, right? In a few like 100 meters, not 100 meters, maybe like 800 meters, you get these different tribes that speak maybe similar languages, and maybe they can understand each other, but they don't speak each other's language, or in some cases speak entirely different languages. And Bislama is that interconnecting language, which is really powerful. But they have this very like shared culture and different culture, and then a lot of like holding on to that in many ways, where it's still prevalent and still around and it's still there. And that kind of like, so beyond the symbolism of the flag, there is that, which is really cool.
Yeah, reflecting the different dialects and the different religions present.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I mean, just the religions themselves, like if we're thinking of just religious influence, just from everything from like the Presbyterian influence in the central areas, central islands of Vanuatu, and then you have like Anglican and Catholic in the north, and of course Catholic being French and Anglican being English, And then you have, like, in the southern areas, you have more Pentecostal, and that's in the central areas too.
I mean, Tongariki alone is, what, a handful of square kilometers, and they have 5 different languages present, one per village.
Languages and...
different religions present, 5 different churches.
Yeah, it's interesting in the sense that I think, you know, there's a whole lot of influences in the country from both inside and out. But also one thing I did want to mention, I was thinking about as we were listening to this song, is we'd mentioned that she was present in it, present in the song, but Lady Rudy's chorus throughout, that's just kind of like it's almost like it's the catchy part that really kind of, that brings you into the song at the very beginning, and it kind of carries throughout. It's almost, I would say, I'm not sure if it's even, I'd have to do the counts on it, but it almost feels like it's half verse and half chorus given the song. And like some of the choruses are, you know, pretty long in between, but it has this very kind of catchy beat to it and catchy tunes and everything. So,
and it brings her back to her singing her anthem about this.
Yeah. No, it's really cool, and I think this was the first song that Lady Rudy performed with Nawarake.
Was it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, she's featured on a number of the tracks in the album, but this song came out in 2020 at the time, and it's the best of my Nawarake discography knowledge. I had not heard a song that he had performed previously with Lady Rudy, at least recorded.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I guess if I remember correctly, he had mentioned, Nawarake had mentioned that Lady Rudy was a backup singer for Vanessa Kwai, a very big singer and songwriter from Vanuatu, who's another one who's pretty well known internationally. And we might even check out some of her tracks later. She has a really cool few albums recently, especially, that I've really enjoyed listening to. I can't remember the name of it. It was kind of a mixture of like reggae that she started doing, but it's like Light It Up. It sounds familiar, but I'll have to check that out and fill you in later on that one. But anyways, anything else about Yumi?
No, I mean, it covers hundreds and thousands of years and makes it catchy and makes you want to listen and learn more. So, well done, team.
Yeah, peak Nawarake.
Peak Nawarake.
All right, we're going to go have a shell, and we'll be back in a bit.
Just before we go, what did you do this weekend, Nick?
What did I do this weekend?
Yeah.
I ran a marathon.
How did you do in that marathon?
I won the marathon.
You won the marathon.
I won the marathon.
This is the first time you've won that marathon?
It was the second time.
It's the second time you've won the Tonga Marathon.
I'm a defending 2-time champion of the Tonga Marathon.
For the full marathon.
For the full marathon.
Congratulations, dude.
Oh, thank you. It was Nawarake got me there.
Did he?
Yeah, with his beats and inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would call my performance # peak Nawarake.
Yeah. Dedicated to you, Matt.
Yeah. There we go. All right, we're going to go have a shell, and we'll be back.
Bye.
With the shell I do through me, respect them all family truly. Unity and money good thing. I live fresh in the place and we moving forward, not looking back. Back, pay tax, nicely and fresh like ice cream on a track. Squeeze the lime in a glass with 2 cubes of ice.
And we are back. So that was Yumi, the third track of the album Vanuatu Proud by Nawarake, released in July of 2021 for the Vanuatu independence. Yumi actually came out a year earlier in July of 2020 for Yumi 40, which is the 40-year anniversary of Vanuatu independence. And then the album Vanuatu Proud was released a year later.
And I know we say it all the time, but Vanuatu having closed borders, they were able to have a huge celebration in person at a time when the pandemic was just a few months old. So it was just, like really humbling and really cool to see the photos of everybody gathered together for the 10-day, 2-week, 1-month celebration for 40 years.
Yeah. Normally Independence is like a week, but they did a really big one for 40 years, which is, I wish I was there. It was so cool to be able to even just watching it through social media was really cool. But so that album came out, Vanuatu Proud came out in 2021, and the next track on the album is Home, and we will be covering that one in the next episode. And we'll also be probably doing some maybe special installments of other songs along the way to spice things up a little bit. Check out some new things that we're interested in doing as we make our way through the album Vanuatu Proud, and maybe complete it by the end of this year. We haven't been exactly consistent.
The end of the year, that's a perfect timeline.
We can do we can put a deadline that we have to get through the 11 tracks. We have, what would that be, 8 tracks to go.
Easy.
8 tracks to go.
Easy.
The next couple tracks, Home and Visit Vanuatu. Home is a focus on Home being Vanuatu being a home for Nawarake, who's recently got his passport in 2020.
Something.
Was that it? I feel like it was before the pandemic, but because we were visiting in like 2018, and wasn't he starting the process? No, it was 2018. We were there December 2018, just before 2019.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that track's focus kind of on the feeling of home and what home means, and it features a Stan from Stan the Earth Force and Lady Rudy again, and then we have which is like a tourism song. It's focused a lot on kind of like why people should visit Vanuatu. I'm wondering now that borders are open there, wondering if they're tapping into Visit Vanuatu as a song.
Oh, for tourism campaigns?
I really hope so. I really do.
I'll send an email to the ministry.
But yeah.
I do just want to flag real quick, apologies for our ignorance on global history, but France colonized Vietnam, so apologies, we did not know that, but Napoleon III decided to invade Vietnam in July 1857. So.
I think we had an idea of that. There's a lot of French influence we only have very little kind of experience with kind of Vietnamese culture through the Pacific, right? So it's through another, it's
through a third party. Yeah.
In the case of Tonga, there's a Vietnamese cafe, but it's Vietnamese who had moved to New Zealand and then moved to Tonga, and then we've had other experiences with Vietnamese culture in the Pacific, but never directly. It's always been kind of this indirect, but
certainly.
Yeah, I certainly can see how in our experiences we've noticed that influence, but certainly no, that's
it's just interesting to think about how the condominium government had cascading effects through other countries that it was also colonizing.
Mm-hmm.
And then how those countries, the colonized countries, then impacted each other culturally.
Mm-hmm. No, it's certainly just kind of shocking how big some of these empires were. To consider how far they stretched. And it's just I can't even imagine.
Raping and pillaging will do that.
Certainly. I can't figure out the compulsion. I don't know, the whole idea of imperialism and jingoism and that national movement to expand the country, expand the empire.
And then to maintain it.
The administration, which I'm sure was absolutely horrible.
Yeah, no, it's a mindfuck.
Yeah, it's just shockingly horrific,
barbaric.
Really, certainly, but
more on depressing topics later.
Yes, yeah. We will. Again, we'll be looking at Home next week, and then following that is Visit Vanuatu, and there's another 8 tracks on Vanuatu Proud that we'll be going through for this first series, and I think we'll probably do some special installments along the way with single tracks from other artists out of Vanuatu or Tonga or maybe even elsewhere, depending on what I don't know where we're going with this. We're just we're literally right now, I just don't even know where we're going with this. I think every time I say something, I'm not entirely sure where it's going to go next. It's
wonderful.
Immense tension that we're putting ourselves on the spot like that. But I guess for some reason
What else are we doing?
we enjoy this self-inflicted pain. So, all right. So with that said, real quick on the numbers, you can check out the video for Nawarake Yumi featuring Lady Rudy on YouTube. It's had 3,800 views, released July 4th, 2020. I wonder if that was on purpose, the Yumi 40 Independence video for Vanuatu, released on U.S. Independence Day.
Clever. Perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah.
I mean, if this was Taylor Swift, it would be absolutely deliberate, so maybe we should award him the same confidence.
Yeah. We can assume that there's 2 Independence Day acknowledgments in doing that. Certainly enough time to lead up to Yumi 40, and it might be because they were honestly celebrating the entire month.
Certainly.
For that 40th anniversary, so that could lead to that. And you can also find the album on Spotify. If you go to the Facebook page, you can check the links in the show notes. There's a link to the album that you can actually download and have full access to the album itself. And with that said, we will see you next time when we take on the next track, Home.
Sounds good. See you then.
Drink lots of kava.
Bye.
Yeah, we living the life. Big up to my people that be keeping the smile. It's time to roll, island fresh, Vanuatu style.
Fresh off the island, like the wind styling. Always keep smiling. Papa God, thank you for the day. Thank you for the day.
Brexley, Philip Island, fresh me bottom island, shirt you bottom island dress, girl. Dedicate Long Islanders, not cause I'm so Long Island. Hey, Brexley, and I do it so freshly. Yes, please, small microphone testing. It's me, just back from the park. Island fresh with the brightness squad. Hey,
Island ni maligolo, mi blong di solarano. Even mi bonung ton mi sistema blong ground. Bubuta le soni dabu, full of the manis matamaro. Roro den so wele, be yakta kisa kisle. You must have me goten, na lisikir no forget them. Combato to score line, atora so pusita ket me loket. Pom pom pom, Island fresh, fresh off the island, like the wind silent. Always keep smiling. Papa God, thank you for the day. Thank you for the day.
Fresh off the island, I'm styling, I'm wildin'. I take a couple strong shells and I get silent. Check the violin, the guitar, the rhyming. I take the microphone like about to get violent. Pete Dax and JP and Rexley and James. And that's like cash money, go ahead and do your thing. Sabe finish, me follow on the more, yeah. Me got a good, me no cranky, no support, yeah. Awesome one, you heard the words I said. White man, bitch, I'm a rap, yeah. Fire up, blow you dead. Couché, all you haters go away. Nawarake, I do this every single day. Ay, me no sabe, he mo sabe. What you sabe, Nawarake, come on from a fire day. Too much badness, I'm madness, we average. Call him easy kill, blonde kill him, dead or rap, please.
Fresh off the island.